human cities are driving evolution and may spawn new species, scientists say. Our cities are reshaping the animals and plants that live in them, pushing some to evolve and even spawning new species more quickly and more often than you might think, scientists say. Scientific evidence suggests those are just some of the dozens of examples uncovered by University of Toronto biology professor Marc Johnson and Jason Munshi-South, a biology professor at Fordham University in New York. The pair poured through the scientific literature and looked for patterns among the 192 studies that appeared to show evolution in action in urban settings. They published their results in the journal Science Thursday. A great tit flies out of a hole in a wall in Petersdorf, Germany. Great tits in Oxford, England, have been evolving longer beaks. There's evidence that this is linked to their use of bird feeders. The Associated Press, evolution is the change in species over generations caused by changes in how common different genes are in the population. Those genes, in turn, can have huge effects on how organisms look, behave, and respond to their environment. So the researchers looked for studies that showed those kinds of changes in urban settings where noise, pollution, artificial lights, asphalt roads, brick and glass buildings, concrete tunnels and other features make them very different from the natural environment species originally evolved in. The researchers found several main ways that cities are pushing animals, plants and other organisms to evolve. Pests like bed bugs are evolving via natural selection to become resistant to poisons. The Associated Press, CBC News chatted with Johnson about the details of the study. Here's a condensed version of the interview. Why did you decide to do this study? I actually don't like cities that much, but being a professor with young family, I'm now kind of stuck in one of North America's largest cities. I started realizing there's pretty amazing biology all around us, and we have very little understanding of how the development of cities and urbanization in general, which is happening throughout the world, is influencing not only the ecology, but also the evolution of the organisms that live around us, and sometimes even with and in some cases on or in us. How does one tell if evolution is happening? Well, it's actually relatively easy, in that evolution is defined in its simplest form as a change in the frequency of alleles, or genes within a population through time. And so if you can track a population, and if you can detect changes in the frequency of the genes within those populations, then you have direct observable evidence for evolutionary change. Then you can link how those genetic changes are leading to changes in, say, traits of that organism. For example, that may be traits such as the ability for plant to defend itself against parasites. Or it could be ability for a pest like cockroaches, bedbugs or rats to resist the poisons that we're often throwing at them. Structures like highways are isolating populations of many species, like the red-backed salamanders of Mont Royal in Montreal. Such species are becoming genetically different over time from populations in nearby parks. Judy Gallagher Flick, licensed under CC BY 2.0. How long does it take? Are cities old enough to see those changes? Some of the oldest cities that we looked at are up to 900 years old in North America, typically 200 years, 250 years kinda being on the older end. For a long time, including when Darwin originally proposed his theory of evolution by natural selection, we thought evolution was a very slow and gradual process. In the last 20 years especially, we've become increasingly aware that evolution can actually happen a lot faster than we originally think. You can detect and literally watch evolution happen in as little as 2 generations. So in as little as 10 generations, you can see relatively rapid and marked evolution, genetically and in the traits. And that amount of time is certainly within the realm of time that cities have been around. It sounds like the evolutionary changes could be good or bad. Say we have a native species that is rare and of conservation concern. If it can't adapt to the change in that urban environment, it will go extinct. If it can adapt to the change in that environment, that may allow it to persist and then to have consequences for other members of the community and maybe the entire ecosystem. From a human perspective, the ability for a pest species, like cockroaches, rats, bedbugs, mosquitoes to adapt to pesticides that we're throwing at them, or adapt to any environmental change associated with a city, could be a bad thing if it's increasing the rate at which they're transmitting diseases to humans. Evidence suggests lizards called crested anoles are growing longer limbs and stickier toes for climbing buildings in cities in Puerto Rico.